What's the best theory on UFOs or aliens you've ever heard? Aliens landed once in Africa, got eaten by lions. Planet now marked as dangerous by the galactic feds. That explains why Australia never has sightings. That if any civilization elsewhere in the universe had the technology to reach us, for any reason, they'd be very likely to also be able to disguise their presence from our detection methods, i.e. they could observe us close up using nanotech, microscopic biological spacecraft etc. and we'd never know. That greys aren't fully biological, but rather remotely controlled androids, or that they are biological, but their grey appearance is a suit and not the actual body. Imagine other life forms looking at our astronauts saying, "Here come the marshmallow cyclops creatures again." Forgot to say, I reckon we are very DNA planted here and they come to check on their experiment from time to time. So, the plot from Prometheus? Got it. The best two I've heard. We don't allow ourselves to contact lost tribes in the Amazon or other wild places. Extraterrestrials may have similar laws on a galactic scale. We split the atom, but made weapons out of them instead of trying to reach the stars. They leave us alone out of fear that we'll destroy ourselves if war accidentally breaks out. There's only one group of indigenous people we have laws against contacting that people respect enough to stay away, and that's only because they killed everyone who tried to make contact with them before they could reach the shore of their island. There are so many star systems with potentially inhabitable planets out there that the chances that we have been the only life in the universe is extremely slim. The question, instead, is whether life arising elsewhere has managed to survive destruction and remain alive today such that they might be able to contact us. That is to say, there have probably been countless civilizations for the past several billion years that simply haven't made it. That life in the universe could be so unrecognizable to us that we wouldn't even register it as being alien life. What if life on another world was not carbon-based, but another element? How would we even know what to look for since our definitions and descriptions of life are based on a completely different perspective? The universe is so big and who knows what kind of chain of events and chemical, or even not chemical, reactions went down on the other side that led to a creation of species that behave completely different than ours. It's why I find it so weird that people think you can't have life without water. It's kinda understandable at the same time as it's sometimes hard to imagine things outside of our scope of understanding. Any species advanced enough to find us wouldn't make contact. They'd study us the way we study animals. Ideally with minimal interference. Compare the average abduction story to the way we dart large animals, collect data and leave them to wake a bit groggy and confused but unharmed. Edit, this took off quite a bit more than I expected. I feel like I should be very clear that it's not a theory I completely agree with, I simply think it's an interesting idea that tends to create discussions. I just threw it in the ring to see what would happen. I agree with a lot of the criticism of it actually. But that's kinda the point. I used to wholeheartedly agree with this theory. But after much discussion, debate and reflection my views have changed. But it's a good jumping off point. They came, they saw, they weren't impressed. Like that time I spent 4 hours digging a hole and saw a bunch of weird bugs. I probably saw the Brad Pitt of bugs and it just didn't do much for me. UFOs are higher dimensional objects moving through our dimension. Like, if we moved a 3D object through 2D space, to a 2D being it would look crazy weird. A hollow sphere would start as a dot, then look like a hula hoop that starts small, gets big, then small again. They'd have no idea what they were looking at. So WTF would a higher dimension object look like passing through our 3D dimension? It might rapidly change shape or appear to move at incredible speed as the whatever moved through our space-time. Gravity wouldn't affect it, I don't think. It wouldn't appear to have any form of propulsion. You know that trope in sci-fi shows, where they stumble upon the networks of the founders or the ancients or the architects. A civilization so advanced, long ago, that traveled the stars. That is us. We're seemingly alone because we're the first. Maybe they'll stumble upon us in a million years. The movie Contact actually makes a good case that we haven't been visited by UFOs or aliens. Our most powerful broadcasts have traveled at best a few dozen light years from this planet. To put that into perspective, if the Milky Way galaxy was the same size as North America, the Earth would be a speck of dust floating around a knick-knack on a living room table in a house in Arizona. Our most powerful broadcast signals have made it to the end of the driveway, or at best across the street. If there were a hyper-intelligent species 2 blocks over desperately listening for signs of intelligence in the neighborhood, they wouldn't even know we existed for at least a couple thousand years. When they finally picked up our signal, our first television broadcasts, it would take their response another couple thousand years to arrive here. The even more bleak reality is that beyond a few light years even the most powerful radio signals will be indistinguishable from background noise. Barring a civilization currently in existence around one of the very nearest stars, unlikely if only given the sheer timescales involved, we'll almost certainly never make contact with extrastellar life. The silver lining is that there's a non-zero chance we'll find life somewhere in our own solar system, should we choose to go out and look for it. Edit, well, this blew up. To everyone proposing faster than light travel / communication as a solution to the problem, consider that you're just tightening the bounds on the Fermi paradox. If a sufficiently advanced civilization can violate causality as we understand it, why aren't they here? They come from the ocean, not space. This sort of reminds me of the plot of The Castaways, an episode from the 1950s radio show X-1. The US government is conducting nuclear tests off an island in the Pacific. The local tribe, rather than be relocated, commits mass suicide by marching into the ocean. Turns out, they were merely returning to their spaceship, which had been submerged for hundreds of years underwater after crash landing on Earth without fuel to get back home. One of the nuclear scientists overseeing the tests was actually a member of the tribe who had infiltrated society to help humans develop nuclear technology. He steals a bomb in order to fuel their trip home. It's a cool story. There is a very simple explanation as to why abductees independently described grey aliens as looking the same. There are no aliens and no abduction took place, but rather they are abstracting residual memories left over from being infants and looking up at adults. Before an infant's visual cortex is fully developed, an adult human looking down at them would appear rounded and grey in color with large eyes. Cross that indistinct memory with a sleep state subconscious and standard psychological patterns and boom, alien abduction. It also explains the sensation of being lifted, examined and probed.